Hi, I'm Fate. I talk about Rent-A-Girlfriend stuff. Today we're not looking at Rent-A-Girlfriend, we're looking at the Shiunji family, which recently got a preview for its anime. Now this is a series I've really wanted to cover as a fan of Reiji Mijime, which I get is a divisive statement that is made these days. To say that you like this man unironically is a little strange for some people, but personally I think he's a genuinely good artist, and both Shiunji family and Rent-A-Girlfriend are fantastic examples of this, but people have really weird reasons for not liking the series that deserves its own very long and complicated video. With that said, today I really wanted to talk about the preview for the series, maybe discuss its plot a little bit, and discuss like the cast and who's working on it, and some of the differences between it and the development of the Rent-A-Girlfriend anime. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna watch the preview trailer. What did you expect? Of course we're gonna watch the preview trailer first, mostly because I genuinely think it's actually amazing. It's actually fantastic. So first things first, let's watch it, and then I'll get into the details of the trailer itself and then all the other stuff. Cool, let's mosey. So, sorry, I'm gonna pause really quick. Two things. One, Shion. I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan. I know Shion's spelled a little bit differently. Very interesting character, but also, again, I connect mostly to him because of the name. Two, one thing I really like, this character's name is Arata, and he is like essentially the head of the family, if you will. Like he's the eldest son or something like that. He has a sister that's older than him, but he's the heir to the throne, if you will. One thing I really liked about the vocal direction that they gave, shoot, I gotta find the actor's name really quick. We'll discuss it in a little bit, but one thing I really love is the vocal direction they gave him. He has a deeper voice. See, one thing that Reiji did when writing the Shiunji family is that it's intentionally the reverse of everything that Rent-A-Girlfriend is. Rent-A-Girlfriend as a series is fundamentally actually a criticism of harems. Most people just look at it and immediately think it's a harem. It's marketed as a harem, but it's actually a criticism of harems. It's actually criticizes a lot of anime tropes in its writing, and it's actually really clever, but it's very subtle. And another problem that happens is that the anime, unfortunately, actually tends to miss a lot of these subtleties and ends up actually undermining a lot of the characters in ways that it doesn't even realize it's doing. And unfortunately, this becomes a repeating pattern where in a lot of ways the anime kind of feels like a harem, but as you get to like season 2 and season 3, it kind of drifts away from the harem element and people are like, oh, it's going a different direction. In reality, it was never a harem. It was always a criticism of harems. It's fundamentally a love story between Kazuya and Chizuru. And I get it, that sounds silly, like it's a rom-com, no shit, but it's not a harem, as in the other female characters were never really an option. It was always Kazuya and Chizuru's love story. This is fundamentally the reverse, and it's actually kind of a reverse criticism of harems in a lot of ways. Another way you can tell is that it takes place in high school, in contrast to Rent-A-Girlfriend, which takes place after high school. A lot of the elements in Rent-A-Girlfriend is the characters like having lost elements of their youth and them reclaiming it. This is the characters in the middle of their youth, and yet there's an underlying tone. A big thing I really want you to pay attention to when we're watching this trailer is pay attention to what Arata says, like the words that he's saying in his dialogue, because this is a much darker series than it appears. It seems simple, like interpersonal struggles between the characters and stuff like that, but there's fundamentally something wrong underneath it all. And for now, I'm not going to spoil everything, of course. Let's just keep going with the trailer, but I really want to point out the difference between Arata and Kazuya, where Arata has a much deeper voice, like he's actually like traditionally attractive. This dude works out. He's a traditionally attractive male character. The main character of the story, he's traditionally attractive, and that's reflected in his deeper voice, in his looks, in his hair, even just his mannerisms. All of that reflect a very different character from Kazuya, even though he has certain elements like he gets a little goofy and silly, like when he's around female characters, where he gets a little squeamish and shit like that. Let's keep going. The heir of the family. I forgot to mention here, Oka's dog that you see right here, she named it Berserk because Reiji is on the same magazine as, you guessed it, Berserk, Young Animal magazine. Let's talk about this really quick. Did you notice how he said we're being swept away by fate? A big thing in Rent-A-Girlfriend's narrative is wondering whether fate actually exists and the characters essentially breaking out of their fate. They're not dictated by their roles and who they're meant to be. Every single character in Rent-A-Girlfriend is a fundamental challenge to a specific role or archetype. For instance, Chizuru is supposed to be the tsundere of the narrative, and yet she fundamentally breaks out of that constantly. She's a challenge to what a tsundere fundamentally is. Not actively always being a tsundere, sometimes having elements of a kudere, sometimes having elements more expressive deres rather than a tsundere. She doesn't just hit Kazuya just because, oh, I'm a little blushing and shit like that. No, oftentimes when Chizuru hits Kazuya, it's fucking warranted. Chizuru as a character works in an industry where she will be judged, therefore she puts up an armor. It's a fundamental criticism of what a tsundere is. Ruka as a character literally has the design and characteristics of the second female character in the harem who usually does not win. And yet a huge part of her arc fundamentally structures itself around Ruka breaking out of that idea that she is not allowed to exist as a character if she is not in love with Kazuya. And this is a huge part of her arc later on within the narrative. Kazuya as a character is a fundamental criticism of traditional masculinity and the dumb MC who is just gets the girl just because he exists. Kazuya actually has to work for the relationship. He doesn't just magically get the relationship, right? It doesn't just happen. He doesn't just get it. He actively has to challenge himself and change as a character. He actively fucks up. When you start the series, he's actually straight up depressed, not, oh, I'm sad. No, straight up depressed, like loss of character, doesn't know who he is. His dialogue in certain scenes straight up has him saying like, Chizuru literally brought light back into my world. My world was gray and empty and she brought light back into it. And this ends up being a theme for her later within the narrative where he becomes her light. She's the one who lost color in her world and he becomes her light. So with all of these things about the characters essentially breaking free of their fate, in a sense, breaking free of the norms and the ideas and the social conditioning being the huge theme of Rent-A-Girlfriend, this is the opposite. This is the characters being dragged along by their emotions, by fate, by everything around them. The world literally tells them who they are and they cannot break free. Everything is decided for these characters. And this is something you can really kind of see initially from the start where their dad just casually, like here, the opening segment where like the story immediately tells you, oh, they're not related by blood. Like that's the whole thing. And that's something that's kind of important here where a lot of people keep saying this is an incest manga. It's not incest. Like, here, let me pull it up. Where is this? Manga Maguru. This account is pretty popular because it naturally talks about like a lot of anime. They share a lot of manga related stuff. They're very popular. All of the big YouTubers follow them. But in my opinion, I genuinely think this account is very notorious with how it reports anything in relation to Rent-A-Girlfriend, Regime Ijime, or of course the Shiunji family, where the moment this series came out, they made their own synopsis of it without having actually read it, and they immediately labeled it as incest. And I love that they got community noted for it, bro. Here, like someone posted it, bro. Incest is a romantic and sexual relationship between close blood relatives. If they are not blood related, it is not incest, and the manga itself was never marked as an incest manga. And they made up their own summary that everybody bought, when that summary is not on the back of the volume, it is not on Amazon, it is nowhere. This is not an incest story. The characters find out they're not blood related, and they never treated each other as any different growing up until they realize this by their dad. And their dad just drops this on them, walks away, says don't talk about it, pretend like it never fucking happened. We're all still brothers and sisters. And this leads to all of the characters essentially having their own problems and their problems starting to arise, and every single one of them grappling with this idea and not knowing how to feel now that they realize they're not blood related, and it's very strange. The only two characters that we find out are blood related, spoilers, I just think it's very necessary to share this as it's kind of relevant to the plot, is Shion and Minami. These two characters are actually blood related and they're twins. In contrast to Arata and Oka, these two characters, you'll notice that she says, it's fine, we're twins after all, right? Like, I think it says you're twins, but they thought they were twins for the longest time and they got along for the longest time, only to realize they're not twins. They just have the same birthday. They're not related at all, completely different people. So each single character has a completely different mother and father. They're not blood related whatsoever. They've just all been adopted. And so a huge element of the narrative is them struggling with this. And then later, as the story continues, this gets messier and messier and messier. And that's the brilliance of the narrative, is that it's extremely messy and deals with this messy element of family and the characters' dynamic falling apart or building. And basically that's Reiji's whole premise for this manga, is that how does family work together? How does it fall apart? How do things connect and not connect? Where do you go when things like this happen to you? And basically Arata's struggle as a character is that he is the head of the household. He is the person who's supposed to manage this family, and he has this big role thrust upon him when he's not even the oldest. Banri is in college, he's still in high school, and yet he's supposed to be the mature adult one here. And this is a big struggle for his character, this idea that he has to be the leader, he has to be in charge. And there's times in this where it reminds me so much of these like older shows or older movies back in the day where the family would be a total mess and shit, but then when they realize like one of their own is hurt or is going through something, they all rally together, they all get into this big car and they all start driving to their destination. They're like, we got you, we're family, shit like that. Then when it really counts, they all come together and they try to like fix each other for one another. This series really kind of has that, but it has that messy, dark undertone of a complicated romance between the sisters and Arata. Interestingly, Shion, this guy, Shion, he has a girlfriend. He doesn't care. That's why Arata's talking to him in the beginning. He has a girlfriend. Dude does not give a shit. And again, I don't want to completely spoil the plot for you. I delve very deeply into this, but this is because I really want to explore this plot that I believe has been very misconstrued by a lot of the people who read Rent-a-Girlfriend, or a lot of the people who judge Rent-a-Girlfriend, and in turn Shiunji Family, without it even coming out. Luckily, the reception for this has actually been extremely positive. As you'll notice, it has at least 150k views, which is really good for a brand new IP. Now let's get into the studio. This is the same exact studio that made Oshinoko, which is huge because it's going to be reflective of the quality of the anime, mostly because while it is a different staff, this is not the same staff as Oshinoko or Shikamori's Not Cute. It's not the same staff as those people, but it is similar. There are similarities in there. And this is, I guess, where we could really kind of get into it. So first, let's talk about the voice cast. Oh man, it is stacked. And I think it's something that I really love about like Reiji's adaptations. Dude, both Rent-a-Girlfriend, Shiunji Family has a stacked cast, and some of them actually overlap. So for instance, Aoka right here is voiced by Rei Takahashi, the same voice actress for Emilia, but also the same voice actress for Sumi. Yeah, they share a voice. There's literally interconnecting characters, and they both have pink hair, funny enough, or Sumi kind of has reddish hair, but still, like, they have the pink element to their character. Now, what's interesting about the narrative is Aoka is low-key, the main female character of the narrative. But Reiji actually focuses a lot on the other characters. She's kind of the sister to the heir, so she's kind of treated like, in a sense, the main female character of the narrative. And I think that's a big element for the other female cast, because, for example, Siha, while her narrative has not been fully explored yet, just to show you who Siha is so you don't, like, get confused. Siha, right here. These two. Siha, interestingly, at least from what I've gathered so far from reading the manga, is that she is a character who actually feels jealous of Aoka in a lot of ways, because Aoka is the main lead sister, and Aoka essentially has all of the skills that the other sisters have. She's a jack of all trades, but she's low-key a master too. And so she's sporty, she's smart, she's popular in school. In contrast, the other sisters all have elements of this in their own ways, except for Banri, who of course is just beloved by everybody. Siha, in contrast, has the smarts, but she doesn't seem to be popular in school, at least outside of like the connection to the Shiunji family and being beautiful, right? But she's the awkward kid who's oftentimes alone. Kotono is very much kind of the same thing. Minami, in contrast, is the sporty kid. She's the kid who's good at sports. So there is an element between these two characters where Aoka is the main female character of the story, And Siha in a lot of ways kind of wants to be that, at least from where I've gathered, and they all try to live up to this idea of trying to be worthy of the Shiunji family. And so I guess that's one more thing I can strike as a comparison between this and Rent a Girlfriend. Rent a Girlfriend, a lot of the characters are not super well off. They're not insanely privileged, wealthy, and the only character that is, Mami, has a very complicated relationship with her family that I don't want to delve into in fear of spoiling it for people, right? But these characters, in contrast, they're all well off. They're all filthy rich, in fact. They all go to a super prestigious school. None of them are struggling for money. None of them have anything like that they're worried about. In fact, a lot of the story has them just kind of going to places. Like wherever the fuck they want to go, we're just gonna go there, no worries. It's an interesting dynamic to contrast the two and how he writes them. So I guess let's go through the cast really quick. Mostly because like I don't remember who is who off the top of my head for every single character. So let's pull it up really quick. So we have Chaika Kobayashi as Shion. He is Stark. He is Stark from Frieren. Damn, all right. He's also in Blue Box as Kyo. Shit, okay. Bruh, okay, so yeah, this person's very experienced, as you can tell. Next, we have Banri, and her actress is Chika Anzia. Interesting name, I hope I didn't and oh my lord, it's the same thing, hyper experienced. She's Chisato in Licorice Recoil, brother. Banri is played by Chisato, oh my god. Wow, that's actually really cool. That's actually so cool. Let's see, Minami. Ooh, Minami, my favorite character, is voiced by Hana Hishikawa. So her list isn't nearly as stacked as the rest of the cast. She is in the Aquatope on White Sand. I really like that show. Why Nobody Remembers Me in This World as Riren. Yeah, it seems like this is her, maybe not her big breakout role, but possibly is her big breakout role. Oh yeah, that's another thing I didn't get to mention. You'll notice here that they sing the theme song performance in the ED. So all the sisters in this are actually singing the ending song. Yeah, so like the ending song that we heard that was like bopping, yeah, they were all singing. It's because in Japan, a lot of times, if you want to be a voice actor, you also pretty much have to learn how to sing and low-key be an idol. And of course, Rei Takahashi actually has albums and things along the like. I know Aoi Yuki, the voice actress for Mami, also has albums and things along the like. So yeah, I'm not really surprised that they can all sing and they're singing the ED song, which is super fitting to have that be written from their perspective. I also think it's fascinating that they're playing the ending song and not the opening song. I don't know if that's a common norm that tends to happen with anime trailers, but I did really want to point that out very quickly. Let's see, Kotono. Ooh, Kotono is a cutie. So let's look through this. Here we go again. Here we go again. Oh my god, the list is endless. So, Kana Ichinose. Oh my god, Ichinose. Chizuru Ichinose comes full circle. She's in Dr. Stone as Yuzihara Ogawa. She's in Kaguya-sama Love is War as Mika Shijo. Well, damn, okay. She's in Frieren as Fern. Okay. End of that. I don't need to tell you anymore. So both Fern and Stark are in this anime. Let's continue. Siha, played by Miriaki Kono. And the biggest recognizable one I could find for Miraka is Mihiro from Onami, I'm Now Your Sister. It's the one where the character gets gender bent. I heard the manga was a lot more cute rather than weird. I personally couldn't get into the anime. I found it a little weird, but if you watch the anime, you know who this character is. Now, Rei Takahashi, I don't need to tell you Rei Takahashi. I told you who Rei Takahashi is. But we gotta get into Arata, who is voiced by Yuichiro Umihara, who looks very familiar. I feel like I've seen his face before. He is in Bleach 1000 Year Blood War as Jugurom Hashirwata. He is also Goblin Slayer. He's just the dude. He's the title and the name. That's so funny. He is Weather Report from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean, bro. So yeah, very experienced, clearly extremely stacked cast. There's a huge variety. Some of them have worked with each other, some of them have not worked with each other. You have super big names like Rei Takahashi. Courier, he's also in Akodama Drive. It's Courier. Fucking love Akodama Drive. What a good fucking show. But see, it doesn't stop there, because the music, oh Lord in heaven. So there's 3 people on the music, and boy oh boy, let me share a story with you guys. So Aki, the first one, made the theme song composition for ED3 and Gurren Lagann. And they haven't done much, like you don't see him in much, but Gurren frickin' Lagann. Shota Hori is a musician who has done a lot of music for a lot of different things. For Sword Art Online 2, and Sword Art Online Alicization and War of the Underworld. They also did the music for The Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime and Violet Evergarden. Finally, Ginyo Hoshi, who hasn't done much, but they have done the music for Miss Kobayashi Dragon's Maid at the OVA, and I believe this is all for the ending song, right? These people created the ending song, which is why it sounds so freaking good. Like, this is literally probably why it sounds so freaking good. And imagine if these are the people who made the ending song, imagine what the music in the show is gonna be like. Like, I haven't even heard the opening. Shit, dude, like this is beyond stacked. And it doesn't end there! We also know Miki Moto is the chief animation director and character designer. These 2 jobs tend to overlap, as if you're the character designer, you're the chief animation director, because the chief animation directors monitor everybody who's producing stuff. Like every frame you get, most of that stuff, especially the big key animations, when they get that stuff, they're the ones who correct it to make sure it stays on model. So being a character designer oftentimes means you're the chief animation director, and it requires a lot of work. However, oftentimes you're not the sole chief animation director, you have other people helping you. That's often a good reflection of a good anime production, because if it's like one chief animation director and maybe like a bunch of normal animation directors underneath, it means it kind of spread out a little bit. Usually you have at least 4 chief animation directors, but one of them is oftentimes the character designer. And the reason for this is just to keep it consistent, but also to lessen their workload so they're not completely overwhelmed. Go to any show that's really well produced, that's really good looking, oftentimes they'll look like that. And they'll have a limited set amount of people who are working on it. It's not stacked with people. It usually has a limited set of people that isn't completely overwhelming. However, in contrast, if you go to something like the production of Rent a Girlfriend, you'll notice that Kana Hariyama is like the only chief animation director besides season 3. Season 3 is the only season where she's not the chief animation director. You'll notice season 3 visually is not on par with season 1 or season 2 because it just falls apart completely on a visual spectrum. And this is something I definitely hope they fix in season 4, as season 4 will also be coming out in 2025 like this. However, this has an early 2025, as this is coming out in April. It's coming out in spring. But Rent a Girlfriend usually comes out in summer, sometime around July. I personally hope they push it to winter. I hope they push it to winter, they take as much time as they need, and best case scenario for me is that we get a 2-core season. Probably not gonna happen. I already opened them prior to this, and I looked through what they made. Jesus Christ. They worked on Oshinoko, they worked on Dress Up Darling, they worked on Naruto, they worked on Shikamori, they worked on Evangelion 3.0. They worked on Fairy Tail. Like the list goes, oh my god, they even worked on High School DxD. That's really funny. But as you can see, the list goes on and on and on and on, and they've worked on a lot of stuff. This person is extremely experienced, and while I believe from looking through the list, this is their first time being a character designer, they have been a chief animation director before, and they've been an animation director on multiple different animes, and they've done a lot of key animation stuff. Even Kana Hariyama, the character designer for the Rent-A-Girlfriend anime, literally said this looks gorgeous and something she really wants to check out. This is someone who worked on Oshinoko, worked with this studio, a studio that actively supports her. But yeah, so this anime is unbelievably stacked. I know I've been ranting for a little bit. I just really wanted to cover all of these details. I will warn you though, for anybody who's jumping into this story, when reading the manga, it feels very slow. This is kind of a methodical kind of read. It's not a kind of manga where it's a lot of stuff is going on. It's very exciting. It's not doing all of that crazy stuff that like Rent a Girlfriend does, where Rent a Girlfriend, when it starts running. This series, it starts walking. It takes its time. It's not really rushing. And I'm really curious how the studio captures it, how the studio will make it very interesting to engage with, because Reiji really leans more into his subtle writing when it comes to the Shiunji family, starting extremely slow. The best comparison I can strike you for anyone who's seen these two shows is Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Shiunji family is the Better Call Saul to Rent a Girlfriend's Breaking Bad, because Breaking Bad just starts sprinting. Better Call Saul really takes its time, and then you really feel the effect of it in later seasons. But there's a lot of interesting writing underneath. It's the kind of the same thing with this story, and I'm really curious how they're going to adapt it, how they're going to do it, just to see where they go with this. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video. I really hope you guys enjoy the Shiunji family, the children of the Shiunji family. It's an interesting series. I really recommend you give this series a watch. It is interesting, and please don't go into it with the mindset that it already sucks or it's incest or any of that. We talked about this. This series actually has some interesting writing underneath, and at some point I do want to cover it in a proper video, maybe a proper set of videos, as well as I want to cover this series as a whole and show you how it compares to Rent a Girlfriend besides what I already explained to you guys, you know, get fully into the spoilers. It's a good series, and so is Rent a Girlfriend, and so I really recommend you guys give these stories a shot and kind of try to go out of your comfort zone, kind of look outside of yourself, look outside of what you're usually comfortable with, and kind of challenge yourself on these ideas, because these are stories that really kind of challenge you as a person and your biases. And if you're really like tied to your biases and you don't really want to look outside of them, you're not going to enjoy these stories. I'm telling you right now. Like, I can tell you right now, a lot of people who might start this will immediately think to themselves like, oh, it's just a generic harem, there's nothing interesting about it. A lot of people already compare this to quintessential quintuplets, and I'm gonna say it right now, it's nothing like quintessential quintuplets, right? Like, sure, you have the sisters who are all filthy rich, but the brother is too. There's no poor person in this narrative. There's no Usagi in this story. There's no poor person. If anything, that's the idea. It's the fundamental challenge of the privilege of the characters. This series is different. This series is not quintessential quintuplets. Like, I know it's easy to strike that comparison, and there are immediate similarities, but it is intentional by Reiji, because Reiji is literally kind of challenging the harem concept by literally writing his own version of a harem, in contrast to Rent a Girlfriend, which is not a harem, but challenging harems. Anywho, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I've been Fate. If you guys would like to support me to keep creating more content, I've been creating a lot this past week. I've been putting out a lot of videos. If you'd like to keep supporting me, please consider supporting me on Patreon. I do have a Patreon. Currently I'm working to add more things on Patreon because it currently doesn't have very much on there. So I'm trying my best to add more stuff onto Patreon so it feels more worth it. But if you could support me on there without me having put everything on there just yet, I would really appreciate it, as it allows me to keep creating content for you guys, both for Rent a Girlfriend and eventually more Shiunji family stuff. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and like button and the bell icon, and let's move.